Astrocartography of Fame, Calamity, and War. In this video, I'm going to show you how different places on Earth trigger different aspects of destiny, and I'm going to demonstrate this by showing you a bunch of examples from entertainment and politics so you really understand how astrocartography impacts a person's destiny. Let's go. All right, so in astrocartography, basically what we do is it's a branch of astrology that allows us to see where on Earth you can go so that certain parts of your chart get activated. It's basically the idea that different areas on Earth have different energies. This is a very important aspect and teaching in the esoteric sciences. We actually know of power places, and the Earth itself has chakras, so to speak, basically subtle energy reservoirs where the vibrations on that location, they are different. The energy is different. If you are a person who has high levels of sensitivity, you'll be able to tell. But that's a whole other story, which we'll look at in other videos. What we're referring to as astrocartography is how you as a person, a specific person with a specific birth chart, how you respond to the energies of different locations on Earth. And in extension, also to the people there, of course. I'm sure you'll have had the experience if you travel, if you go anywhere that's very different to where you're usually based, that you notice the energy is different. And it's not the same thing as just saying that, okay, this place is tropical, that place is cold, this place is more developed, that place is less developed. And so those are kind of just a rational way of looking at things, which that's definitely, true, but that's not all there is to it, because you will certainly know from your own experience, in addition to those rational elements, there is something else as well. The energy of places is different. If you go somewhere, it's possible that this place is tropical, the other place is tropical as well. Let's say you're in South America and then you go to Southeast Asia and they're both tropical places, but the energy can be very, very different, very, very different. Right? And the energy that's different is basically what you can see in the astrocartography. We're taking the chart, we're taking your personal chart, and we're transposing it somewhere else. And then we get the so-called astrocartography map that shows you which energies are going to be activated or triggered when you travel to that new location, especially when you stay there for a prolonged period of time. Now I'm going to show you a couple of examples to illustrate how the astrocartography works and how effective it is, how telling it really is. And you're going to see it's really mind-blowing the level of accuracy and insight that you can get from the maps. All right, the first example that we're going to look at is Arnold Schwarzenegger. And you got his chart here. Obviously, he's famous for having found some huge successes far away from where he was born. He's from Austria. And then he went on to become this huge, not just bodybuilder first, but then a film actor. And then after that, the governor of California. All of that he did in the US, in California more specifically. In his chart, you can't necessarily see a lot, that there's going to be a far away success. But you would have the signs. If we were to look deeper, we could find them, especially if I would add the asteroids. But that's not really the point of what I'm trying to do in this video. You have the Uranus-Moon opposition here that shows you the unconventional far away home, especially with the 9th house of the distance being ruled by Uranus. But I'm not going to go too much into the details of this. We don't need to bring up the asteroids. What really interests us here today is the astrocartography. So when I look at the astrocartography, obviously we should want to see something very significant in California, right? Because that's where he, rose to fame and where he had all of his major successes. And lo and behold, you've got the very significant line, a very, very significant line, the Jupiter on the MC line. You see this here? Jupiter on the MC, right? Jupiter on the MC is basically where you have the greatest opportunities, socially speaking, with regards to public standing, right? With regards to your public career, accomplishments and opportunities simply. And Jupiter here is, where's the Jupiter on the MC line go through? You see it goes through here, exactly through California, and it goes down here. So you're gonna see this here. Basically it goes, it's kind of that line here between California and Nevada and Arizona, but it's close to Los Angeles. You can see here, you have sort of a radius of 100 kilometers around the line where you will feel the impact of the line. This is in general true for the major lines that are close to your axes, because it means that when it's sort of 100 kilometers around the line, that means that it's going to be a couple of degrees, 3-4 degrees from your axis. So in this case, from the MC, which is your MC-IC axis, basically, right? The midheaven. And in addition to this, we also have a strong Venus line. So you see here, Venus on the ascendant is here. Here is his Mercury ascendant, Venus on the ascendant. You see the line goes up here, and it goes directly here through California, right? Being very close to LA. So in LA, he's going to have the effect of Jupiter and Venus, like the lesser benefic and the greater benefic. They're both going to be completely amplified here. Right? So this is kind of very straightforward case of where you would say, if you want the benefics to do their work and dish out their blessings to you at a higher level, that's the place that you would want to navigate yourself to, right? And it's pretty clear in the chart that this worked out for Arnold really well, right? So, and then is there more? Yeah, there's so much more, obviously, with the Uranus-Mars conjunction here. He was going to be somebody who's quite accident prone, and you would want to stay away from lines where that particular constellation gets triggered if you want to avoid accidents. So for his case, you know, you'd want to tell him to perhaps not do some big stunts, or a movie where he has to do some big stunts. He's too old for that now, but in the past, anywhere in Bangkok, in Thailand, or anywhere in Southeast Asia where he has his Mars-Uranus line going directly through here, he had a couple of big profile accidents, and when we dig deeper into the parans, we would see that they're close to those respective paran lines, which are sort of auxiliary additional lines. Okay, so this is one example. And I'm going to give you another example for a more tragic case, namely for the case of James Gandolfini of Sopranos fame, Tony Soprano, right? The actor was immortalized by playing that big brooding mobster Tony Soprano. And he died around age, I think it was 50 or 51. And it's kind of interesting and tragic and telling in some ways that there is a scene in The Sopranos where Christopher Moltisanti, he shouts at Tony and he says, the way you're eating, you're going to be dead by age 50. You're going to die of a heart attack by age 50. And the actor actually died with age 50, you know, of a heart attack. So 50 or 51, like very close to that. So you can see sometimes how the fates do their work and how they speak through people and characters who are giving voice to something that goes beyond themselves. So would you say, like, the screenwriter, the script writer, did he know when he put that into Christopher Moltisanti's mouth? Well, the big script writer, the big screenwriter obviously knew, right? The universal screenwriter, the universal script writer that writes the script of life obviously knew, right? So, but when we look at his chart, we should see signs of this in the astrocartography as well. And this is James Gandolfini with a Neptune on the ascendant exactly. And he's got this very telling Pluto opposition to Chiron. So Pluto opposite Chiron, these people, you know, this is going to be, these natives often suffer from very inexplicable medical conditions and sort of mysterious diseases that are hard to pinpoint. Doesn't mean that if you have this aspect in your chart that necessarily something bad's going to happen, but there will be some important messages and issues around health which are going to potentially bring you closer to some deeper insights as well. But there's going to be a lot of suffering and pain involved necessarily when you have a hard aspect. Pluto, Chiron. Even when you have a hard transit, Pluto, Chiron, it's the case too. And with regards to his astrocartography, he was in Italy when this happened. So we're going to look at the chart. This is James Gandolfini's chart for his astrocartography. And in Italy, he was in Rome with his son, actually. His son who played in the Many Saints of Newark. He played the young Tony Soprano, and his son, he was with him together in Rome, in Italy, or near Rome somewhere. And that's where he had this heart attack and he died. And he has a very significant line going through, exactly through Rome, actually. As you can see here, this is black line here, this black line. And what is this black line? It's a Saturn line. You see here, Saturn on the descendant. Saturn on the descendant, basically Saturn hitting your AC-DC axis, or your ascendant-descendant axis, right? Generally speaking, when you have Saturn on the ascendant-descendant axis, it's sort of a limitation of your personality, of who you are, of your physical presence as well, right? Doesn't mean, obviously, every time there's an aspect like that, somebody's going to die, but it's clearly a pointer towards some form of karmic limitation that's going to happen. But in astrology, we always want to see multiple hits so we can actually tell something more concrete. And synchronistically, at the same time, James Gandolfini, at that exact same time, he had a transit. You see here, this is the time in April, May, June 2013, which is when he died. And you can see here very clearly that during this time, he had an exact transit of Saturn on his ascendant. You see here, so transiting Saturn was on his ascendant during that time. And during this time, when he's going to have this kind of karmic limitation, right? And his natal Neptune is already there, which is going to make him extremely sensitive, an extremely sensitive body, extremely sensitive physical frame of sorts, despite the kind of hulking figure. There's going to be that energetic sensitivity. And then Saturn hits it exactly. And at the exact same time, he goes to a place where he has the double whammy, basically, with Saturn on his descendant, on his AC-DC axis. That's Rome, right? And in addition to that, Chiron line, a Chiron-Paran line is also very close, within 100 kilometers to this place, right? So in the Chiron, we had already identified that in his chart as a vulnerable point. And this comes together, this adds together and shows you a very clear picture of where somebody is going to be much more vulnerable and prone to have this kind of calamity happen, right? So for yourself, if you want to see this, like, there's so much that you can see in the astrocartography. Which place is good for romance? Which place is good for home, a feeling of belonging? Which place is good for career progress? All of these things, you can decode that from the charts, especially if you add the multiple levels. If you look at your chart yourself and the astrocartography, you can find out the big parameters already. If you want to go deeper, you can work with me. There is spots available for consultations that you can find if you look in the links below, and we can work through some strategy for yourself. A lot of people these days are mobile, whether they're digital nomads or they have multiple locations that they're working from and that they have bases in the world to mitigate risks and optimize their opportunities. And we can develop a real strategy around that. Obviously, you need to look at your own chart in depth first and at your transits, and then you can understand where you should go, which is in tune with your overall holistic development. Now, there is also other things that you can see from the astrocartography. In addition to these personal triggers, you can also see even more than this. You can see how a person is going to respond to the energies of those places, of those cultures, of those nations that are indicated by the lines. So there is a real use as well in mundane astrology, in political astrology, right? And you know that I focus on that a lot when it comes to understanding where politically the world is going. I'm just going to give you two examples here, not to, take this too far and make this video too long, but 2 examples about big political decisions, war and peace decisions, geopolitics, namely about Joe Biden and Donald Trump. So if we look at the astrocartography of these 2 guys, right, it shows you a really different picture. Each one of them shows you a really different picture. So I'm going to show you Joe Biden first. And this is Joe Biden, the still, president of the United States, even though nobody really knows if he has that much to say and that much power right now. But be that as it may, the personal karma always plays an important role. And certainly the last 4 years or so, his personal karma has played an important role in the foreign policy, in the geopolitics of the US. And when you look at his chart, you have here the Mars line. You see the red line here, that's his Mars line. The Mars line, it goes directly through, exactly through Moscow, the red line here, and then through Tehran. You see here? This is his Mars line. This is where he's going to encounter his enemies, right? Or where he feels that he experiences basically the energies of those places and the people from those places, the states that are indicated by those lines as his enemies, right? So you have the red line here, goes through Moscow and Tehran, and that's a clear indicator of the geopolitics as well, right? And then, so through Ukraine, you can see here his moon and his Neptune line going. You see here, this is Neptune and moon line. They're going through Ukraine, and moon is family and home, and Neptune is deception. So his family, his close family certainly had some deceptive things there that they were doing, and he got maybe fooled and tricked as well. Who knows? He got played, definitely, when it comes to Ukraine. And then you have here, through China, you have his other Neptune line going. So on China, especially on Taiwan, he was always kind of unclear and confused, and there wasn't really a clear stance there with regards to China. The Jupiter line goes here actually through Shanghai and Beijing. So he was more interested in business and kind of confused about China, but still trying to do some business with China. And now when you look at the chart of Trump, you're going to see a completely different picture. And this is Trump. This is Trump's chart. He was already president, so we have an idea of his geopolitics, and if and when he returns to the White House, we would see a continuation of that. And with him, you've got the ascendant Mars line where he meets his enemies, basically, where he sees his enemies. You have that going directly through China here. You see here, Shanghai is exactly here on this line. And the descendant Pluto, this is Pluto, where you are going to feel power struggles and meet a very formidable enemy, is going directly through Beijing, right? So for Trump, it's very different. And then you have here his Mars goes here through Eastern Europe. The Mars line, Mars on the MC, he's going to oppose Eastern Europe. And his Pluto MC goes directly through Europe, the heart of Europe, right? This is for Trump. So Trump is going to be perceived by the Europeans. He is perceived by the Europeans as an oppressive force of sort. You see here his MC Pluto directly goes through the center of Europe. MC Mars goes through Eastern Europe. By the Eastern Europeans, he's going to be experienced as somebody who probably is throwing them to the wolves and not necessarily defending them, escalating the conflicts there, because he mostly sees his opponents in China rather than seeing them in Russia as Biden and as the current administration does. Now, this is just another example for how the astrocartography can serve for even more than just helping you understand your personal triggers and your personal activations. There's so much more to the astrocartography as well. In future videos, we're going to look at the other aspects and dimensions, how long you have to stay in a place till something gets triggered, which places are better for career and finances and business and all of those things. If you want to see specific things and specific questions that you have around this, let me know in the comments so I can take this into account in my future videos. Make sure to subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so yet. Also, like this video, tick, 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 tick. Go and check the links out below that I'm going to be posting. There's so much stuff that you can do and get involved with Ultra Sapient and with the various offers and insights that I'm going to be sharing, that we are sharing already. And until the next time, I wish you all the best. Be well, be blessed.